What is up, everybody? How's everyone doing out there in YouTube land? I wanted to come on here. It's been a few weeks since I've been back um, on YouTube specifically. I've been back from the Philippines now for about 7 days, 8 days. So, anyway, I want to do this quick video. Quick. I can never do anything quick. I want to do this quick video on Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense. Secretary of War. I don't like that term. First of all, I think it's stupid. There's some stupid and smart things that they did. I'm going to follow up with some of that stuff during this video. But one of the things that the smart thing they did was to rename Fort Liberty back to Fort Bragg. I served at Fort Bragg, and I think it was really vile. I think it was stupid to call it Fort Liberty because it was politically correct. So I'm glad they renamed it back to Fort Bragg. That being said, there's some stupid things they've done too, like the Department of Defense is now the Department of War. What is that about? You have to be at war. The reason that it was named that back in the World War is because we were at war. Like we were literally at war. We're not at war right now. If we were at war going back 20 years, if you want to call it the Department of War during Afghanistan or Iraq, then that's fine. But it's really stupid to name it Department of War right now. Anyway, I'm going to get on to the video at hand. I served in the military. That's me. That's me my last year. I think that was my last year. And that's me my first year. That was, and I couldn't shrink the photo so that you could see my ugly mug, but that was me when I was 17 years old. One of the reasons that I started this channel, the main reason is Life According to Bob has to do with an old man's point of view and all the experiences, all the life experiences and all the things that I've done in my life in order to pass that information on to the younger set. The younger set, people that would be watching me, hopefully are from about 18 to about 30 in that range. I know a lot of people aren't in that range, but that's my hope. Because giving out this information to people that are my age or a bit younger is kind of a mood issue. Like it's a bit late for that. My information has to do with all the life experiences, as I've posted videos already about my issue, my heart attack and the things that I did wrong with my heart attack, you know, smoking and not eating right and all this other stuff, but also financial advice to younger people that they don't make the same mistakes that I did. You know, the 10 things or whatever it was, I forget the name of the video now, that I wish I knew when I was 20. So right in that picture, I'm 17 years old, and it was the smartest decision I never knew I made to sign up for the military, because right now I enjoy the benefits in my latter years. I enjoy free medical, which I appreciate. Oh my God, I appreciate it so much at my age. But that guy didn't know that. That guy wasn't thinking about 64. He wasn't thinking about 50. 50? Oh, that's like, I might not ever get there. I might die before that. That guy didn't know what I know, but yet he made the decision to go in. This guy this guy right here was at that point 20 years old. 20. So the things that I wish that this guy knew, like if I could talk to that guy right now, I would have had a much better life. And that's the reason that I'm posting these videos for the younger set. You know, when you're about 20 years old and you're just starting in on life and trying to make decisions and doing all that stuff, that's when you need this advice the most. If you don't have a father, if you don't have an uncle, a grandfather, a mentor of some sort to tell you what you need to know when you're younger, your path to life is going to be much, much harder. Anyway, on to the video at hand. So, Pete Hegseth, I feel, my personal opinion is that he should have never, ever stepped foot in that position. There are so many, did I say many? There are so many people that are much, much more qualified than he ever was or ever is qualified for that Department of Defense And you know, the funny thing too, this guy, I think Pete Hegseth is in his 40s, and you've got combat generals and combat colonels and all kinds of different ranks in the military, with regard to the Navy and the Air Force and all this stuff, that have much more experience in not only military type of stuff, but also combat than Pete ever did in his life and ever will in his life. So I think it was a wrong pick. Although there are some things that I'm going to agree with him on, and I'm going to play the video. I'm not going to play the whole thing because this video will go on way, way, way too long if I play the whole thing, but I'm going to let him speak, and I'm going to chime in on some of the things I agree with and I disagree with. So let me bring this guy up.
To ensure peace, we must prepare for war. From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: warfighting. Preparing for war and preparing to win. Unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Thus, the only people who actually deserve peace are those who are willing to wage war to defend it. That's why pacifism is so naive and dangerous. It ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone. It's a truth as old as time. To our enemies, F-A-F-O.
Okay, now I'm going to say, like, that's really, really stupid because, you know, he's doing F-A-F-O, if any of you know what that means. And you can Google it if you want to. I think it's just childish for Department of Defense lead to go into internet lingo. I think it's dumb. Especially because he's not talking to 20 or 30 years old that would know what that means, right? He's not talking to them. He's talking to generals from all over the world. Like, he's talking to older people. Like, why would you even say that? I don't like that they're standing behind this background, well, his background of the American flag. And I think Trump did that on purpose, because the last time you saw something like that, or that I saw, was General Patton giving a speech. And you can go look that up on the internet. I'm sure it's around. And he gave this awesome speech, and he had the American flag behind him like that. So I think it was kind of a throwback to a Patton speech, which is really kind of disgusting, because neither one of these guys have anything remotely to do with Patton or what Patton preached or what he said on his speech. So anyway, I'm going to let him finish.
If necessary, our troops can translate that for you. The military has been forced by foolish and reckless politicians to focus on the wrong things. In many ways, this speech is about fixing decades of decay. Some of it obvious, some of it hidden. Or as the chairman has put it, we are clearing out the debris, removing the distractions, clearing the way for leaders to be leaders. You might say we're ending the war on warriors. I heard someone wrote a book about that.
Okay, that's kind of disgusting too. He has a book called Ending the War on Warriors. And so he's pushing his own book on this speech that he knew was going to go out to millions of people. So it's pretty nasty that he would get up on a stage talking to, and, you know, promoting yourself in the context of the military is stupid. And it's just unprofessional.
For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas, based on historic so-called firsts.
I don't know that I agree with that, because I've been out of the military for so long. I would not have any knowledge that there's any type of quotas or there's any type of preference given in the military. I just don't know.
We've pretended that combat arms and non-combat arms are the same thing. We've weeded out so-called toxic leaders under the guise of double-blind psychology assessments, promoting risk-averse, go-along-to-get-along conformists instead. You name it, the department did it. Foolish and reckless political leaders set the wrong compass heading, and we lost our way. We became the woke department, but not anymore. Right now, I'm looking out at a sea of Americans who made a choice when they were young men and young women to do something most Americans will not, to serve something greater than yourselves, to fight for God and country, for freedom and the Constitution. You made a choice to serve when others did not, and I commend you. You are truly the best of America. But this does not mean, and this goes for all of us, that our path to this auditorium on this day was a straight line, or that the conditions of the formations we lead are where we want them to be. You love your country, and we love this uniform, which is why we must do better. We just have to be honest. We have to say with our mouths what we see with our eyes, to just tell it like it is in plain English, to point out the obvious things right in front of us. That's what leaders must do. We cannot go another day without directly addressing the plank in our own eye, without addressing the problems in our own commands and in our own formations. This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses.
Okay, so, again, with any type of video, with any type of speech, with any type of anything somebody says, controversy is always more stirring than the truth. Dudes in dresses in the military does not exist. And also, just so you know, video has gone on for 11 minutes. I'm not playing the full speech. I took a clip off the internet of about 12 minutes, I think it is. So along with my diatribe that I have to talk about, it's probably going to be a little longer than 12 minutes. But so you know, it's not going to be the full hour and a half or however long the speech was, just so you know ahead of time.
No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that shit. Would I want my eldest son, who is 15 years old, eventually joining the types of formations that we are currently wielding? If in any way the answer to that is no, or even yes, but, then we're doing something wrong. Because my son is no more important than any other American citizen who dons the cloth of our nation. He is no more important than your son. All precious souls made in the image and likeness of God. Every parent deserves to know that their son or their daughter that joins our ranks is entering exactly the kind of unit that the Secretary of War would want his son to join. The new War Department golden rule is this: do unto your unit as you would have done unto your own child's unit. Would you want him serving with fat or unfit or undertrained troops? Okay, so again, some of the things that I push back on with him, with his speech, with fat, undertrained troops. Fat is not always a choice. I know there's all kinds of different diseases that cause somebody to be bloated, for whatever reason they have. There are PT tests when I was in that you have to take annually. And there was, and again, I was in an infantry capacity. So I wasn't a cook, or I wasn't a supply sergeant, or I wasn't, someone who has a sedate type of job. We were constantly doing road marches and on field problems and all that stuff. And I don't remember anybody that was fat when I was in. And I don't know what the military is like now. I know they have a stress card, which is really messed up. Like if the drill sergeant gets onto you too much or whatever, you can't take anymore. You pull out the card and they got to stop. That is so messed up. I can't even articulate the stupidity of having a stress card when you're in the military. Because the whole point of boot camp is to put you under stress as if it were combat and see how you would react. You can't pull out a card when you're in combat. You can't pull out a stress card. So there's a lot of things that I disagree and that I agree with him. But this is kind of stupid. Like, if the military has gotten to the point where
you're fat or you're not able to do your job, then that's kind of the problem of the leaders and not the military overall. But I'm going to let him continue.
Or alongside people who can't meet basic standards? Or in a unit where standards were lowered so certain types of troops could make it in?
I don't know that to be true. Standards are lowered so certain types of troops can make it in. I'm not sure what that refers to.
In a unit where leaders were promoted for reasons other than merit, performance, and warfighting? The answer is not just no, it's hell no. This means at the War Department, first and foremost, we must restore a ruthless, dispassionate, and common sense application of standards. I don't want my son serving alongside troops who are out of shape, or in combat unit with females who can't meet the same combat arms physical standards as men.
Okay, and that kind of ties together, that somebody is out of shape or that a female can't meet the same standards. I do agree with that. I do definitely. In fact, before he became one of Trump's cronies, he had done a podcast and he talked about he didn't like the fact that they allowed females to be in combat roles. And I agree 100,000%. A female has no reason, no purpose, and no rational, logical. There's nothing about a woman in combat that makes sense. Nothing. And yes, I want my buddy next to me to be in shape because he has to carry me because I get shot or something like that. Yeah, I want him to be able to carry me. I want them to be in shape. So yes, I agree with what he's talking about in both fronts. Both the fact that, no, let me replay that again a little bit.
For a ruthless, dispassionate, and common sense application of standards. I don't want my son serving alongside troops who are out of shape.
Right.
Or in combat unit with females who can't meet the same combat arms physical standards as men.
Right.
Or troops who are not fully proficient on their assigned weapons, platform, or task.
Right.
Or under a leader who was the first, but not the best. Standards must be uniform, gender neutral, and high. If not, they're not standards. They're just suggestions. Suggestions that get our sons and daughters killed. When it comes to combat arms units, and there are many different stripes across our joint force, the era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings leadership ends right now. At every level, either you can meet the standard, either you can do the job, either you are disciplined, fit, and trained, or you are out. I agree.
And the same as I get him back to earlier, if you're not going to be a professional in any capacity that you're in life, then get out. And military is included.
And that's why today, at my direction, and this is the first of 10 Department of War directives that are arriving at your commands as we speak and in your inbox. Today, at my direction, each service will ensure that every requirement for every combat MOS, for every designated combat arms position, returns to the highest male standard only.
Yes, I would agree with that. Male standard, meaning he's putting in the sprinkling of, okay, I would accept a female in a combat role if she can meet the same standards as the men do. I still don't agree with that. Sorry.
Because this job is life or death.
Yep.
Standards must be met.
Yep.
And not just met, at every level, we should seek to exceed the standard, to push the envelope, to compete. It's common sense and core to who we are and what we do. It should be in our DNA. Today, at my direction, we are also adding a combat field test for combat arms units that must be executable in any environment at any time and with combat equipment. These tests, they'll look familiar. They'll resemble the Army Expert Physical Fitness Assessment.
Yep.
Or the Marine Corps Combat Fitness Test. I'm also directing that warfighters in combat jobs execute their service fitness test at a gender-neutral, age-normed male standard scored above 70%. It all starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon.
Okay, so fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon. You know, when older guys, or women for that matter, get girthy as they get older, I'm not, but I'm just saying, that's like normal. If you go up to any office building in the world and you go to the executive branch of any office building, you're going to find fat executives. I mean, it's just what it is. I agree that what he talked about, that the physical standards and the training and all that stuff should be in place. And yes, there should be tests for that. And yes, it should be an annual type of thing. And yes, I agree with all that stuff. But the troops, the combat troops he spoke of, shouldn't be overweight. Yes, I agree with. But the higher echelon guys, no, that's just going to happen with age.
And leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the Joint Force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year.
I don't know about twice a year. When we took PT tests, I believe it was annual. It could have been twice a year, but I don't remember it being annual. But the height and weight standard, that you're going to get put out of the military because you don't meet a height and weight standard, you know, again, I would only agree with that in a combat MOS.
Every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day.
And that's what we did. We did PT every morning. It was literally right before chow. We woke up at 5 a.m., and by 5:30, we were having formation and going out and doing PT until 6 a.m. or 6:15 or whatever it was. And then we formed up again, and then we went to chow. So I don't know what changed.
Common sense. I mean, most units do that already.
Yeah.
But we're codifying it. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching. Real hard PT, either as a unit or as an individual. At every level, from the Joint Chiefs to everyone in this room to the youngest private, leaders set the standard. And so many of you do this already. Active, guard, and reserve. This also means grooming standards. No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards.
Yeah, and I don't recall anybody having beards in the military unless you were on quarters, which basically means that you had bumps on your face or whatever, and you couldn't shave your face. But I don't remember anybody having beards.
Because it's like the broken windows theory of policing. It's like when you let the small stuff go, the big stuff eventually goes. So you have to address the small stuff. This is on duty, in the field, and in the rear. If you want a beard, you can join Special Forces. If not, then shave. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans. But unfortunately, we have had leaders who either refuse to call BS and enforce standards, or leaders who felt like they were not allowed to enforce standards. Both are unacceptable. Male-level physical standards for combat positions. Cannot pass a PT test or don't want to shave and look professional, it's time for a new position or a new profession. Upholding and demanding high standards is not toxic. Enforcing high standards, not toxic standards. Real toxic leadership is promoting people based on immutable characteristics or quotas instead of based on merit. Real toxic leadership is promoting destructive ideologies that those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. It will also mean that weak men won't qualify because we're not playing games. But it could be the result. Men can make it excellent. If not, it is what it is. If that means no women qualify for some combat jobs, so be it. That is not the intent, but it could be the result. so be it. It will also mean that weak men won't qualify because we're not playing games. This is combat. This is life or death. As we all know, this is you versus an enemy hell-bent on killing you. To be an effective, lethal fighting force, you must trust that the warrior alongside you in battle is capable, truly physically capable of doing what is necessary under fire. You know this is the only standard you would want for your kids and for your grandkids. Apply the War Department Golden Rule, the 1990 test, and the E6 test, and it's really hard to go wrong.
Okay, so that's about it. I don't know that he really hit on, all the topics that I wanted to hit on, because I think there was a lot of stuff said. I'm going to say this. As I said, I don't like the guy. I think he's a POS. I think he has absolutely no business in the position that he's in, because he kissed the ring. And because he used to be, I think, a commentator on Fox or something like that. So he was handpicked by Trump and all this stuff. That being said, I will say this. That was unscripted. I think he went on for an hour. It could have been longer than an hour. I don't know. I never watched the whole thing. I watched snippets. That it was unscripted, that he didn't have a teleprompter, that he was able to succinctly give out his message to all of these people in a very, very calculated, very smooth, very passionate form. I'm going to say this. That was an excellent speech. Not the message itself, but he's a good speech giver because he did this off the cuff. No teleprompter, no script that he's reading off a podium or anything like that, just off the top of his brain. So for that reason, I'll give him his props for that. However, talking to 500 generals and admirals and all this stuff like their children, like they don't know what they're doing, is kind of disgusting. That they spent $6 million supposedly flying all these people in from all over the world, taking away from their real responsibility so that he could have given the speech like literally on a Zoom call. Arguably, there's something to be said about in person. I think it was a tongue lashing that was not. It wasn't about the message. It was about the messenger. The message is lost on most of those generals. Trust me. It was about the messenger. It was about propping himself up and making him look bad and all this stuff. Same as Trump. When Trump came on, I didn't even watch any of that stuff because it was just disgusting. As I said, with the American flag behind Trump, he was trying to be a patent. He was trying to, again, he's a narcissist. Trump is a narcissist. So he was saying all the right things to get his base riled up and all that stuff. And then it's also disgusting. Trump was kicked out of, like he never served in the military. Trump in the military? Oh, hell no. He's too selfish for that. He would never, ever do that. But he was kicked out of a military school that he was in when he was like, in high school, I think, something like that, because he couldn't hang. And he was around during the draft of the Vietnam War, and he got out of the draft. So he's a scared little mama's boy. So whatever Trump has to say about the military is one ear and out the other. In fact, I just close my ear. I don't want to hear what he has to say because it's POS. Both of them are POS, and both of them have no business talking trash to, these generals and admirals and all that stuff. I have more respect for them. I have more respect for one of those guys in that room than I would for any of his cabinet, period. But especially the two of them, they're disgusting. That's my view on it. If there's one message I want to bring across to the younger set, as I started out with this video talking about, that I'm hoping my audience will be in the 18 to 30 range. If you are thinking about joining the military, could you wait 3 years? Like, could you just wait for 3 years to make that happen? And if you're going to join the military, and I think it's an an excellent idea for any young person. If you don't have the advantages of college, if you don't have the advantages of some type of, trade school or something else that you are on a trajectory to do in your life when you're 20 years old, join the military. It's an excellent career. If it's not, again, I talked about this on another video, but had I spent my 20 years in, I would have retired at 37 years old. At 37, I would have retired. That's a lifetime ago for me right now. I'm 64. At 37, I would have had a pension from the government. And I was stupid enough not to spend the 20 years in. Even if you did 3 years, the minimum requirement, decided to get out, you know what, that was good. And now I have my feet on the ground. I have some structure in my life. I know what's going on. I've saved some money, which I didn't do when I was in the military. I've saved some money, and now I'm on this path to be XYZ, whatever it is you want to do. Now you have that behind you, like I do at 64, and I have free medical. And I have other benefits. When I get on a plane, like I was in the Philippines and all that stuff, I get to go on after the people in wheelchairs and parents with babies. Then I'm next. I get discounts at places, Home Depot and all kinds of different places. I get discounts. So there's a lot of added benefits to having served in the military, even if it's for a short time. But I'm suggesting, if you don't have a clear path for your life, spend 20 years in and disregard all the BS. Don't be an ass kisser, but be, put in your time, and know that time goes by quickly. Even though you think 20 years is a long time, it will go by so quickly, it will spin your head. And then you'll be out. If you go in 20 years old, 40 years old, you'll be out. And from 40, 50, 60, you'll still have time for another career. You'll have that pension from the military. You'll have your second career pension. You'll have SSI. And if you're smart, you would have put into 401k. You will have 4 sources of income when you get my age, which I don't have all that stuff. So that's why I'm putting out this information for the younger set. There's not a good reason not to join. Like this guy right here had no idea about all the benefits that I get. And had I stayed in, I would have benefited more. So I'm just suggesting that maybe you wait 3 years, because I don't know what kind of damage this administration is going to do to the military. I agree with the combat roles being men only. I agree that you should be in shape and that you should be educated about your career if you're a combat MOS. I'm on the fence about the trans thing. There's a lot of, trans people in the Army, or in the military, as it were, which is new to me, because, like, I couldn't imagine in the 1970s having trans people in the military. But if you can do the job, then why not? I'm not against that. I'm not against it at all. And they don't wear dresses. Come on. Like, some of the hyperbole that both of these guys put out is disgusting and unprofessional. So I'm kind of on the fence about that. I still don't feel like a trans person has any role in a combat situation. If women and trans people want to serve in the military, and they're good at what they do, and they're trained properly, and they're dedicated to the government should also be dedicated to them, but in a different role. There's all kinds of jobs. As many jobs as there are in civilian life, they have those in the military too. That many jobs. Yes, that many. So that's my kind of take on it. I feel like the divisiveness that is being the government shouldn't be divisive. Like, none of us should be divisive, but the divisiveness that these two people are trying to instill into the military is going to inevitably, what I would have liked to see? They were talking about, I forget if it was Pete or somebody or Trump, but they were talking about, I think it was Trump. If you don't like what I'm talking about, you can quit right now. You can leave right now. I wish every single one of those admirals and generals just got up. I wish they would have left. I mean, they wouldn't, obviously, because they value their career more than they do principle. But I would have loved to have seen every single one of those guys get up out of their chair and walk out and leave Trump there hanging. That would have been beautiful, because they can't operate without all those guys. Like, they need him and he needs them, like it's mutual. Anyway, that's about it. I've gone on long enough. 35 minutes. Is it 35 or is it 25? I can't see. What? 35 minutes. I've gone on 35 minutes now, and I'm going to stop with this video. Too long talking already. So I'm going to do more videos. I'm going to come up, now that I'm back and I can think clearly and logically and all that stuff, I'm going to come up with more videos about different topics. If you have any ideas for any topics, put it in the comment section. I'm more than willing. And I'm going to put out videos on my take on news events, because when it comes to younger people with some of the stuff that's coming out, I think it's important to get a seasoned, lifelong perspective on things, on everything that happens in the world. So I'm not going to try and be too political, because it's pretty obvious how I think. And so, if there's people out there, right wing or left wing or whatever, that, disagree or agree with me, it doesn't really matter. It's my opinion. But, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm what they call, I'm not right and I'm not left. I'm basically, you do you and I'll do me, and we mind our own business. It's kind of like politically neutral, because I believe on one side these people, and I believe on that side the other people, and all that stuff. I'm more leaning toward the Democratic thing, but there's a lot of Democratic stuff I don't like, and I sometimes go with the Republican thing. As I said, I own a bunch of weapons, and so I'm not, I don't know. It's hard to pin me to any political genre. I just, what my thing is about character. And the reason that I talked about both of these guys that were on the stage earlier, because their lack of character, because their lack of backbone, because their lack of any type of morals or values, or it just bothers me. It just bothers me a lot, especially with Trump. It's just, and that's why I call him POS, because he's just disgusting. He has no morals. He has no character. He has no backbone. He has no empathy, sympathy. I could go on and on and on, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, I'm going to come off of here. Much too long already. Let me know if there's any topics you want me to cover, and I will do so as soon as I can. I'm kind of busy with my work and all that stuff, but I will make time for other topics. And if you don't come up with anything, I'll come up with something myself. Trust me, I will come up with something myself. Anyway, have a great weekend, guys. It's a Friday as I record this, so enjoy your weekend. It's going to get cold, I think, after this weekend. We're into fall big time.